I don't even know there was 4 J-Bros, and my wife, I think, is gone to see them.
Well, I don't think Frankie walks out on stage, so.
I had no idea. You could have told me there was 10 of them. I would have believed you.
I should have told him there was 10 of them. Could have pranked him right there. Hello and welcome to another edition of Popcorn Bucket List, the show that talks about the biggest movie news and releases each week. My name is Dahlhoff, Nick Dahlhoff, and with as always is my main man, Mr. M, Mr. Ryan Meyerberg. Yeah, that's a little teaser for what we're going to be talking about here. At least that was going to be the first topic, but then big news came out earlier this week. I had been avoiding this topic. I thought about we should maybe talk about it because there was rumblings, but the optimist in me, the stupid optimist in me, said, no, they're going to figure it out. It won't happen. We don't need to talk about it because it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
I was in denial.
Yeah, I remember like 2 weeks ago them talking about it, and it's like, no, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
They're grown adults. They'll figure it out. So that's right. It's time for another edition of PBN Popcorn Bucket News, Writers' Strike 2023. Oddly enough, a part of this story is actually going to also kind of tie into what we're going to talk about later on.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened? How did we get here? Well, you can, from everything I've read and what it seems like, you can just blame this all on streaming services. So this is kind of what the Writers Guild is kind of claiming. Because of streaming services and how their kind of model works, it seems like they've turned their sort of job into some claims I've seen makes it seem like they go from working 10 months out of the year to essentially 12 weeks out of the year. Mm-hmm. It's turned into a gig economy, which you can make a living off of if done right, but not when your job went from 10 months to 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. It's not sustainable. So a lot of the writers union here, they were asking for maybe some adjustments and everything. It seemed like negotiations were happening at least. It looked like it was positive.
It sounded like they were at least talking to each other, that they were some sort of opportunity to fix this.
Yeah. There was time. It wasn't like all of a sudden just everything collapsed and everything was like, whoa, what happened? How did we get here? So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about, well, what are the effects here? There's some short term and there's maybe some long term. Let's look at the short term ones. First and foremost, by the time you've probably watched this, it's been a few days now, so you've probably seen some of these effects. Late night TV has come to a complete halt, essentially.
Done.
Mainly airing reruns because they produce their show within a day.
Yep.
You know, they write it, produce it at night, and it goes out. You know, in some cases live. Well, you don't have writers, you can't do that.
Yep.
So late night shows, obviously some of the big ones, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel,
Stephen Colbert,
Fallon, all that, basically been airing reruns. At first there was initially it was up in the air whether or not SNL was going to come back. They had 3 more episodes slated in their season. This was also kind of a big deal because Pete Davidson was set to return to host. Yep. That's not happening. They're running reruns for the rest of their season as well. Daytime television dramas, soap operas. I know people still watch them out there. I know that because one of them is my mom, and I hate to tell you, so they won't feel the effects right away. We don't know when some of these shows will run out, but they also have a very tight production schedule. We're probably going to see a lot more reruns similar to late night TV with these dramas within the next week, more than likely. So enjoy it while it lasts, is what I'm trying to say, because it might be a little bit. So those are kind of the immediate casualties, I guess I would say, in this war.
I would say the big ones, the front line that you're going to notice right away will be, for sure, the late night. I mean, half of it started last night. They started showing reruns. Mm-hmm. So
those are the immediate casualties. Some of these are only in critical condition and won't feel effects for a little bit longer. Network TV shows, because this happens so late into, it's early in 2023, but it's late in a TV season run.
Yep.
So a lot of these seasons won't be affected. However, it's already been reported next season's television will be taking a hit, because right about now is when writers start kind of getting on the keyboards and start figuring
formulating
it out.
the more close to the final drafts.
Yeah. So once again, for those of you who are big into network TV shows, enjoy it while it lasts. That's essentially my warning throughout this entire episode. Just enjoy it while it lasts, because we don't know how long this strike is going to go. So yeah, network TV, they're kind of going to be the next ones to fall. Oddly enough, I feel like the one that's going to feel the effect the longest down the road, streaming services, which are arguably the reason why this is happening. Because, again, they have such a shorter episode length more often than not, that they generally are able to get so much of it out there. And so they kind of have a lot of content already set out throughout the year. I feel like they're kind of the ones. It's kind of like when you are the creator of the mess, but then you leave the room and your younger siblings come in, and then they kind of get blamed and punished for it, even though you were the one who spilled everything.
You were the one that did everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great analogy. That's awesome.
Like, streaming services are kind of or I guess depending on who you ask, maybe it's the younger sibling. They're the newest one. They're the young one who don't know any better. And so the parents like, oh, be calm my child, and like blame the older sibling even though they weren't there to begin with. I don't know. Depending on which sibling you have or where you are in the hierarchy, pick your metaphor. It works in any way, shape, or form, really. Another big thing, movies. This year, they probably won't be affected.
Yeah, because pretty much anything coming out this year is already done. It's either editing or just going through like slight screening processes, and they're going to change one line or one thing of dialogue or make it a couple minutes shorter.
Yeah. So, yeah, this year movies probably won't be affected. If this goes long term, however, 2024 and 2025 may see some pushback as well.
Well, I've already seen a couple of Marvel movies and some with the DCEU, LLP, whatever, the DC world.
Yeah.
They are
whatever they're calling it this week.
Yeah, whatever they're calling it, that's kind of taking a hit because I shouldn't say right now, but recently it's been really vamp up. Let's get everything rolling. Let's get the machine running.
Well, because we had so many roadblocks with the pandemic, and it kind of felt like we were getting back into a rhythm again. Yep. I liked it. We were kind of spreading it out. You know, it was the movie making machine. Movies were making money. Is kind of like, all right, we tripped, we fell because of the pandemic. We're back on our feet. We're starting to move again.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden this comes, and if it is long term, this strike, then it's going to domino effect, and we're just going to have to rebuild it up again and everything. And that's kind of the annoying part for me is when you look at the movie industry, it was like, okay, we had it figured out, we were doing good, and then something that kind of wasn't their fault got negatively affected again.
And especially coming back from COVID, from the pandemic, that was so weird. It was just a weird time. People on set with masks, they couldn't be around each other. You had to have a mask on, and it was a huge shakeup. And now it was just like, all right, we're good. We're good.
We had it going. We were doing good. So how does this end? Well, I'm not really a negotiator, and I don't really know what was all being said in these meetings, so I can't really say for sure. But for context, the last time there was a huge writer's strike in the late 2000s, it lasted for 100 days.
That's 3 months. A little over 3 months.
Little over 3 months. And there were some bad movies that came out because of it. 2008 was not a great year, one of which, Quantum of Solace, was a Bond movie. We're going to be talking about James Bond here today, folks, and one of the worst Bond movies came out because of this writer's strike. So DC Comics picked a worse time to try and rebuild their platform.
Yes,
Marvel's probably going to take a hit now, but who knows?
I think Marvel's been taking a hit for a little bit. They've been taking a couple of hits.
I think they're just fine. And I don't know why everyone is hating on the. That's a whole other discussion we'll get into.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. So, yeah, like I said, we'll have to see how more of this goes on. I really hoped they were going to fix it before it became a problem. Fortunately, it wasn't. But let's move on then. We'll give you more updates as it comes in. Hey, we talk a lot about movies on this channel, but sometimes the ones we talk about aren't the most accessible. That's where the Marshall-Lyon County Library comes in handy. They have a great collection of physical media, as well as a couple of online services with many, many options for movies, TV shows, and documentaries. It's easy. Just get your own library card at the Marshall-Lyon County Library and gain access to their large variety of movies, TV shows, and of course, books. Also, be sure to check back every month as we here at Popcorn Bucket List make specific movie recommendations based on a monthly theme. This month, we're talking Bond, James Bond, and his best movies of all time. So head on over to the Marshall-Lyon County Library for some of our favorites and check out the channel to get even more movie recommendations. And now, on with the show! Let's move on to the opening spotlight. The first thing we were going to talk about today, May 8th, marks the 60th anniversary of Dr. No releasing in America. Yes, it did. It was released in 1962, so technically this is like the 61st, but we're America and we don't count that, and we missed it last year, so we just ignore what they do over there. USA, USA. Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, the James Bond franchise as a whole, I don't think is the greatest franchise. I think it's one of the most influential, and I think it's the most fascinating, but I don't think it's the greatest.
Okay.
Now, it may be because I've been marathoning James Bond, and so it's been like nearly 24/7 just hearing him womanizing and just being a jerk to certain people every once in a while. James Bond isn't the greatest person of all time. I'm just going to say that. So that may have to do with it. But you do rewatch that and you do think to yourself, like, how much of movies in the past decades has it kind of influenced? Has it inspired and everything like that? I mean, the spy genre in general. You watch some of the best ones today and it's like, well, they kind of got that idea from this one. Or I'll watch a movie and be like, oh, yeah, you kind of inspired this one later on.
Yeah,
so.
Or I saw that exact same sequence in this Bond film. Like, yeah, that was really cool, but it's doing it again. You know, it's just they've been so influential. How many movies are? Well, we'll get into that.
Let's get into some of the stats. It's a perfect segue, actually. So, in the James Bond franchise, 27 total movies, technically 25, depending on who you ask. We'll get more into that later. 6 total actors, again, 7, depending on who you ask. But yeah, let's base it off 27 movies. Like, that is quite an accomplishment for one character. With Marvel, yeah, they've surpassed that, but they had multiple characters to play with here.
This is one guy that, yes, he changes throughout the movies, but he also stays the same.
He's still Bond.
He's
James
still
Bond.
Bond. Yeah.
My question to you is, what's the first Bond movie you saw?
You know,
do you remember?
Sort of. It was a Pierce Brosnan one. It came. I want to say I was like 10. Was it not Die Another Day?
Die Another Day.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that was the first one that I saw, and I just remember thinking, "Holy cannoli, Little Myberg, this is awesome! This is the coolest thing ever." And then I think my dad maybe showed me some more Bond films, and it was, oh, okay, I get this now. Because at the time it was just one movie that I saw, James Bond. That was it. I didn't really. I had no idea the backstory.
Yeah, I was kind of growing up in that little gap between the Brosnan and the Craig movies, so I didn't really have a James Bond to watch new. Because I'm assuming when you saw Die Another Day, it was fairly recently, probably just coming out on DVD maybe or something like that. But I kind of grew up more in that gap. So the first one I remember seeing, but I don't remember much of, was Live and Let Die. And I just remember that title sequence where it keeps, you just saw the assassination of like 3 different people. Yeah. And then there's like the skull and crossbone thing. And I'm just like, as a kid, just watching this, I don't know who let me watch that. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Probably was him. But also, it's got one of my favorite Bond themes, which is made me fall in love with Paul McCartney. So thanks, Dad. Pro and con, that situation.
One of the other first things is I had a Nintendo 64 growing up, and I played 007 GoldenEye.
Yep.
And that was awesome game. We played it all the time, me and my friends. And that was also another introduction to the Bond franchise. However, I think I'd played that game for years before I actually watched the movie. But you get the da-da-da, you get the music, and you get the moving, like the eyeglass.
Yeah.
And then so like it was just fantastic.
Even if you don't know Bond, you know that theme. I mean, I just mentioned how I've been marathoning these movies, and there are certain things that sort of annoy me. One thing that doesn't annoy me, that Bond theme. Yeah. I've been just playing that in my head like clockwork for the past like 6 days.
Yeah. Well, when you came into
the office. And it's still not annoying to me.
When you came into the office the other day, you did the...
Yeah, I did. I started with the walk, and Right, I got him right in there. Yeah, but it's a good theme. It is a good theme. But one of the reasons why I think it's one of the most fascinating franchise is because of that whole 25, 27 movie thing. So I want to talk about that. I want to get into that, some of the interesting history behind that. So late 1960s, Sean Connery, he's been Bond this whole time. He's gone like 5 movies, I think, something like that. He ends with You Only Live Twice, arguably one of the worst in my opinion. It's actually worse than Quantum of Solace, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And he asked for a price increase. He wants to get paid more. Fair enough. He's a big star. He's had other reasons behind it and everything. Studio said no. Connery walks. So then we've got the introduction, the very first new Bond movie that had a different cast member. This started the precedent, I think, and made it so that this franchise went as long as it did.
Yeah.
Because whenever you start getting sick and tired of it, okay, we'll bring in a new actor. I love how everyone complains about Spider-Man keep changing actors. Like, we're only at 3 now, and the Bond franchise is over here at 6, being like, yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
Only 3, whatever.
Yeah.
But so anyways, this is so fascinating to me. I love this story. So a guy, an Australian actor named George Lazenby, I think I'm pronouncing that right, something like that. He hasn't really worked much, but he hears there's this new role. They're trying to find a new Bond actor. From the story I've heard, he literally dressed it up in a suit and just walked into the offices and just introduced himself as James Bond. They gave him the part.
Yeah. Taking action into your own hands. That's what you do.
That is controlling your own destiny.
Yes.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect the heck out of this man. It was awesome. Are you kidding me? Like, Hollywood was so much simpler back then. You just walked into those offices. Try doing that today.
Try finding those offices.
Yeah, try just walking in there. See what happens to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets the part. He then acts in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Arguably one of the better ones, in my opinion, also. I think he was great at it. I thought they brought in new stuff to it. He also asked for a pay increase right after this movie. Studio said no, so he walked. Back in comes Connery for one more outing. At least at the time, we thought was one more outing. He then comes and does another one, and then it comes Roger Moore he actually did 7 total. I think he beat Connery's. He's got like the most out of all of them. But the other most fascinating part to me about this franchise, about halfway through the 80s, you've got Roger Moore. He's been going at it for at least 5 movies now. He's on his way to making a 6. They want to do another one with Connery. Well, there was like a whole, I'm not going to get into a whole story of it, but they basically made 2 Bond films in 1 year. The catch was you had to remake Thunderball. Now, I'm not saying remake like, oh, we're going to change a few things. Like, they just redid Thunderball. Same characters, same names, same plot points, same everything. Just Connery was older this time. Yeah. That's the only difference. And it still made money. Yeah. That's how popular this Bond franchise was. The new one that came out that same summer, or I should say the new one came out the summer, the new Connery one came out in the fall, only beat it by like not even $100 million. Like, it was still pretty close.
It was still pretty close.
Even though people knew this wouldn't matter. It didn't count, really. They just made the same movie.
Just it's an extra little side thing for you.
It's not even an extra side thing. It's them taking the side thing off your plate you already ate and then giving it to you again new. Yeah. And claiming it was new. Like, that's how popular this Bond franchise was, and this is why I've always found it to be so fascinating. And we're not even getting into the 1960s Casino Royale, which was a spoof, by the way, which is why there's technically 7 actors, but we're not even getting into that. That's how crazy this whole franchise is. We kind of mentioned it before, Quantum of Solace with the writer's strike thing. But let's end on this. What is your favorite Bond theme? That's another huge staple of the Bond franchise. What's your favorite?
Favorite Bond theme?
Yeah.
Probably GoldenEye.
GoldenEye?
Yep, I just have to, because I think it's just grained into my head so much from playing it on Nintendo 64. I think it's just, that's what it is. That's the one I go to.
So it's not so much that that's the one you love. It's more like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing, where it's just convinced you.
Yeah, and now that you say that, I think maybe tonight or this weekend I'm going to play.
You're going to play GoldenEye?
Yeah, I'm going to play GoldenEye.
I've always kind of narrowed it down to 2. Again, one of them is Live and Let Die, because, again, one of the first ones I saw, and also big Paul McCartney fan. But I do have to give a shout-out to Billie Eilish. No Time to Die, I think, is one of the better Bond films. I just didn't want to make that as my front runner because that's
Yeah.
kind of a recency bias. But.
Yeah.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Let's take a quick moment here and talk about the Marshall 6 Theater here in Marshall, Minnesota. It's May, which means summer movie season is here. And with summer movie season comes hotter temperatures, summer vacations, and the biggest blockbusters. So be sure to stay up to date on the latest releases by heading over to the Marshall 6 website for showtimes. Also, follow them on Facebook to be the first to know about the best deals and concessions, including popcorn and drinks. So head on over to the Marshall 6 Theater for the best summer movies.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Let's end this with an early edition of Number One Recommends, which we're going to call Number Bond Recommends. That may be the stupidest joke I've ever done in this show. Let's talk about our favorite Bond movies. I'm going to go first because mine came out first. I'm going to say On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Okay.
Because, again, I love George as the character. It's funny because you look back and it wasn't well received by people because they were so used to the Connery version, and George's version was just a little bit different to Bond. But you look back, it's been kind of accepted by the Bond fans now because it kind of set the stage for what Bond would become.
Yeah.
It sort of laid the first pebbles or grains of sand, whatever you want to call it, for Roger Moore. And then it kind of set up what we kind of later on saw, where it was like he was still a suave Bond. But my problem with Connery was always he was like a cocky Bond. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm the best and I know it.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones were like, I'm the best and I'm going to prove it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I always liked Tim's a little bit better.
Okay.
How about you? What was your favorite Bond movie?
I would say one of my favorites is Casino Royale. That was one of the first Bond films that I remember seeing trailers for and getting excited to go watch it. I believe, was that the second Daniel Craig?
That was the first Daniel Craig.
Was that the first Daniel
And
Craig? Okay.
That's what I find so interesting is both of ours were the first actors and the ones that I think most redefined the genre of Bond. Because George did something different than Connery did. Daniel Craig was doing something different than Brosnan and all those other guys before him did.
Yeah.
They are the most, I think, inventive to the Bond franchise.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and that's like, I had seen quite a few Bond movies by that time, but I hadn't seen his version of it. And I was really excited to go watch it in the theaters. And I always remember that maybe it's part of that like recency bias, I guess you could say, that or nostalgia, that just it was a good time. And I just will always remember that. And it felt good.
Yeah. But yeah, that is everything we came to talk about today with James Bond. A lot to cover so far. We are going to end things with the weekly preview. Not a lot to talk about,
not
however.
a lot to talk about.
Why? Because there's a big heavy hitter here. Starting off the summer movie season, it is here. May has arrived. The summer movie season, one of my favorite times of the year. It starts today, May 5th, Friday. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Coming to theaters. This is the final installment of this Guardians of the Galaxy team. They've made that very apparent. They've said
Very
that many
clear.
times in the marketing and everything. This is for sure going to be James Gunn's last round, directing a Marvel project, more than likely, as he's kind of busy with DC now. A lot of these guys are probably going to be done. I think it's worth... I'm sorry, my throat's a little dry. I think it's worth mentioning this doesn't necessarily mean this is the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because like a lot of team-ups in the comics, usually they just keep changing the rosters up. So you could potentially see future installments of a Guardians team. It's probably not going to look like this, though.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think because obviously the first two were pretty successful, and I think this one's going to be very successful as well. I think there will be more Guardians of the Galaxy films, but you're right. It will not resemble this lineup at all. I think it will be vastly different.
Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit more emotional. They've said it. The actors have said it when they read the script. A lot of them said they cried when they read it. And I was like, is that overhyping it a little bit? It just kind of seems like you're doing a little too much here. But early critics' reviews, everything I've read, They might not have been overhyping it.
Yeah. Yep. I'm super pumped to watch this.
And I'm super curious because the first Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite MCU movie so far.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may be seeing a changing of the guard here this weekend. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. But the other thing we're going to quickly talk about here, Love Again. This one's coming to theaters. A romantic comedy where after an untimely death, Priyanka Chopra Jonas's character keeps texting her boyfriend's phone in a way to deal with her grief. The phone number eventually gets reassigned to a reporter who does not believe in love and gets into a debate about this with Celine Dion. Not Celine Dion's character, mind you, actual Celine Dion. She plays herself in this movie. So my parents taught me that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
That's a great point. This movie looks like... Well, first, I don't even know where to start. I don't know. I don't even know. Isn't one of the J Bros in this movie? I think one of the J Bros is in here.
Yeah, it's the one who's married to the main character in this. They're married. Did I just blow your mind?
You did.
Yeah, Nick Jonas. He's married to Jonas is in her name.
What's her name again?
Priyanka. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but it's like Priyanka Chopra Jonas.
Oh.
Yeah, they're married, bro.
Oh. Okay.
Joe is married to Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Kevin married someone who's not a celebrity.
How many brothers are there?
There's like 4 brothers. But like only the 3 of the ones are like tour.
They're not all in the band?
Well, the one's like really, really young.
Oh, little baby?
I don't know. I guess compared to them.
Yeah,
the other 3 are like 30 years old. So I guess by comparison, the other one's a baby.
Okay. That's about all we got to say about the movie is Nick Jonas and his
he makes Nick Jonas makes a cameo in this.
Yeah.
Look, at this point, anything I do say will be a repeat of what I've said before about romantic comedies.
This movie should not be coming out to theaters. This movie screams Hallmark or Lifetime or Oprah. Doesn't Oprah have a channel?
I think
Oprah
she
Network?
still does. Yeah.
Or maybe even, let's dive into like maybe a little Svengoolie TV or Comet TV. This is where this should go. You guys ever watch those channels? It's fantastic. But no, this movie's garbage without seeing it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it ends with them literally doing the whole it's snowy out. One of them's walking along the sidewalk and one of them's running up behind them to catch up to him. Yeah. Classic romantic comedy shot. If you want me to say something else about these, then maybe the movie should do something different. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Also, the dude's a creep because he gets these text messages from this girl and doesn't mention that in any of It's not technically stalking, but if you have to say it's not technically stalking, that's not
a good sign.
It's not a good sign.
Not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. Yeah. We'll go see. We're gonna go see Guardians.
Yeah,
Want to just keep talking about Guardians 3 again?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Guardians 3.
Did you know James Gunn made like 600 edits of that movie?
Yeah.
For different theaters because he cares about your theater experience. He wants you to get the best version at whatever theater you're at. If it has an IMAX theater, if it's Dolby Atmos surround, if it's 7.1 surround, if it's what aspect ratio they have at the theater. He cares about that. So he made, like you said, 600.
Do you think Love Again made 600 versions? I think not.
No.
I think not.
Do we think that they even like finished it or just kind of pushed it out? I think they probably just pushed it out. So, hey, let's get out of here.
I know she's got that big show on Amazon Prime, so they're probably trying to get it out right now.
What show is she on Amazon Prime?
Citadel, though. Citadel.
Oh.
Do you pay attention, bro?
No.
Okay, that makes sense, actually.
No.
All right. Well, on that note, that's going to do it for us here on this episode of Popcorn Bucket List. If you liked your discussion on James Bond, you would like to see some of our recommendations for yourself, make sure you head on over to the Marshall-Lyon County Library where you can check out our display and all the other cool things that they have there. Also, we'd like to give another shout out to the Marshall 6 Theater. The big premieres, like I said, summer movie season coming out. So you're going to want to check out showtimes there as well. For myself and Ryan Meyerberg, I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you at a Jonas Brothers concert.
Go.